Hello everyone, I'm James again. This is First Web Designer Show again, and today we have Joel again, our previous guest, and we have an interesting topic today. You know how in these days everyone talks about funding, getting investors, growing, scaling. The business is booming very fast. Now, today we're going to slow down a little bit and talk about cases where you can't really access a lot of money, and perhaps you don't even need to, because my today's guest, Joel, will tell us, how you can actually live your life, run your business with a bootstrapping mindset. And there are a few tools and maybe things that you can't even call tools that really have helped him in his life and business. Hello, Joel.
Hey, thanks for having me, James. It's fun to be back.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, the last episode, people were sharing, people were commenting, so I'm really confident that this episode will do well as well. Maybe then, tell us a little bit about what do you understand with words bootstrapping mindset, and what is it really?
I've been bootstrapping my business even before I started my business. I've been a solo entrepreneur for almost 3.5 years now. And in my former corporate life, it was all about, I was working in the financial industry with huge sums. I was part of this technology roadmap team. Basically, I was a liaison between different business lines in a big financial company, making sure that I was working with IT, so working with the business analysts and the project managers and the developers to create these technology roadmaps to meet the needs of thousands of internal employees. So our internal budget was $40 million a year. Now, a lot of that went to infrastructure or to fixed costs of about 25 million. But we had, not me directly, but through the pool, we had about $15 million available to us for development every year. That's a huge sum. It's kind of surprising, actually, sometimes how little you can get done with $15 million. But taking that mindset and that approach, and then realizing when I started my own thing that I didn't need to have $15 million to make things happen. To write a book, to start a podcast, to do event organizing. When you talk about tools, I tend to think not necessarily in terms of specific tools. I tend to think of my world as resources. So online scheduling platform that helps me and you communicate really easily and set up this conversation, that's a tool. But the fact that you and I are friends and we communicate well, we are resources for each other as well. Ideas can be resources. Basically, I operate in the world of resources, of which tools are just a small subset. So that bootstrap mentality that I have means because I have a lot of friends, because I'm connected to a lot of different communities, because I love bringing people together and I'm always helping folks, people want to help me too. So I don't need to have venture capital. And I like to keep the small mindset. I like to keep the slower mindset where I'm not in business to become a millionaire tomorrow. I'm in business to generate thank yous. I'm in business to make an impact on people in a pretty unconventional way. And the bootstrap model for folks who aren't in a race, who aren't constantly competing against other people, who want to collaborate instead of compete all the time, the bootstrap model is a perfect model for that.
Wow, so really love the word resource, and as I understand, it's not only about you collecting and gathering these resources, but it's also you being a resource, so it's vice versa. So how, I guess that's where you gotta start, isn't it? Figuring out how you can be a resource before you go and, try to see what others can give you. So how can you figure out what kind of resource can you be and what kind of resources can you gain for that?
Expanding your mindset of what a resource is. So a lot of people think, I can't possibly give somebody anything. I don't have money, I don't have time, I don't have the energy, I don't have the motivation. A lot of times, and even in the world of business, what people need most is they don't need a pool of money. They need motivation. They need somebody to be an accountability ally for them. So just letting somebody know, let's say you have somebody who's struggling. Maybe they're doing a startup. Maybe they've got an app that's going on. They might have the technical team in place. They might have the practical know-how. But for some reason, they just can't wake up in the morning and hit it. If they know that at noon every single day, you're going to be sending them a text or an email saying, give me a link to that thing that you just created, or show me the picture. Prove to me that your team or that you did what you told me you were going to do yesterday. Knowing that you have these accountability allies is a huge part. You become a resource for somebody and you become a motivational force just by existing and by challenging somebody, knowing that in the back of their head, I don't necessarily need to deliver for me, but I need to deliver for Joel because I made a promise to him. And sometimes making a promise to someone else is more powerful than making promises to yourself. That's one way to be a resource. Social capital, too. Who do you know? This is probably the oldest currency in the world. Like before we even had financial currency, it was about what was your ranking in the tribe? How well were you looked upon? What was your status? We can use our social currency at any point in time to connect one person to another. So you've got a web developer who also needs a graphic designer, who needs a project manager, who needs this whole team. Well, if I can connect somebody who's in need of a teammate to each other, and maybe they can even become friends, every time they get together and they have an interaction and it's positive, guess who they're feeling good about? They're feeling good about me. And I'm the byproduct, I'm the beneficiary of that social capital that I'm creating by connecting people. So there's all these different forms of currencies and different ways that you can be resourced. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I think one of our previous guests called it the first bit you're talking about, the accountability, called it a social contract. Where you make the contract with a person, it's like, man, you can't break. It's a contract, you know. You gotta deliver your bit, and then, yeah. You know, the connector, of course, yeah, I can always resonate. It's, I think that's how also, you know, if you want to take it to a whole new next level, that's how, you know, PR companies are built. Obviously, then it turns into commercial money thing, but it's connection. But then, you know, not everyone has these connections. What do you do then? You know, what? How can you be a good resource then? You know. Not everyone is going to be happy with just, you know, you sending text. Have you done it? Yeah, good, thank you.
That's true. For some people, that's the last thing that they want. They do not want anybody looking over their shoulder. Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? That feels like micromanagement. They shrink. They don't want to have anything to do with it. When you're just talking about PR and the list. So any good public relations or media relations person, after a few years, they have these lists. Their lists are typically people. They're individuals at radio stations or newspapers or TV companies or bloggers or podcasters, you know, big time YouTube creators, whatever they happen to be. And their resource is their list. For other people, their list, if you want to look at it that way, might be their email list. So if you have 2,000 people, if you have 20,000 people on your email list, each one of these people represents somebody that you can ask for help. And it's kind of ironic. A lot of people think, well, I don't deserve help. I haven't given enough to people. Sometimes people are just waiting for an opportunity to help you. And the challenge is having everybody has kind of this case. I just read Amanda Palmer's book, by the way, The Art of Asking, which is a phenomenal book. So maybe this is why the top of my head. But everybody always has, at least startup folks and younger folks, the fraud police are calling them, this imposter syndrome that who am I to ask for help? But sometimes you can build amazing relationships simply by asking genuinely and in a way where people can tell there's reciprocity behind it. I'm asking from a place of vulnerability. I'm asking from a place of trust. And you can build some really cool relationships just by asking. So each of these people on your email list are somebody who can fill out a survey, somebody who can join a community, people who are willing to help you if you give them the opportunity to do it. That's another resource, whether maybe it's your Twitter feed, maybe it's your Facebook fans, but let them help you. And do it to tell them that it's not necessarily helping you as an individual. You're doing it on behalf of the company. You're doing it on behalf of the community. So you're really asking on behalf of them to help everybody else in the group that they self-identify with, that they want to help as well. And of course, if they help you, you're going to give them kudos. You're going to give them attribution. You're going to give them a major shout out on an interview or whatever it happens to be. That is another resource, is the list, whatever the list might be.
See, and obviously, I like that you use the word reciprocity, because obviously, those people you're asking, based on this psychological thing called reciprocity, they won't mind to help you, because initially you have been a resource to them. I think that's a crucial part. Again, think how you can. That's where you got to start. Thinking how you deliver something that they might, find helpful. So in these days, of course, you don't just have a list. You don't just have a few people. We talked a little bit before the show. You have mastermind groups. You have actually people who have been there when you've been low, people who you say without them you wouldn't be where you are now. So because with something like email list or Twitter, you can't necessarily always be individually personal with everyone. It's a list of people who trust in you. But sometimes, I think you mentioned 5. I think you are 5 of you, where it's a whole deeper level. Maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I know you're big into this too, and I've been in a mastermind group for over 3 years now. And there's 4 people who have been in it. Our 5th person has fluctuated. We've had 2 new people. But it's the most amazing thing. As a solo entrepreneur, there's a lot of things where I think I got to do it all myself. I got to do the marketing. I got to do the design. I got to build the infrastructure. I got to do this. I got to do that. There's 10 different categories of these reoccurring tasks. And how the heck am I supposed to get it all done? Well, I don't have to do it all, especially when it comes to the strategy piece. That's where my mastermind group comes into play. So we actually use, there's so many different flavors of mastermind groups. Some of them are about personal development. Others are about spiritual development. Our group is a peer development group. We are most invested not in our own success within the group, but in everyone else's success. So this concept of peer development is huge with me. And I'm always looking to help my peers, which is everybody, basically. If you're a human, you're my peer. I don't really believe in people being, higher status or lower status, maybe in terms of your prominence. President Obama, he's certainly higher status than I am, but I could have a conversation with him, a human-to-human conversation. Getting back to the mastermind group, is we use this model. Keith Ferrazzi, you ever heard of him? He's an author who wrote 2 bestsellers, Never Eat Alone and Who's Got Your Back. Yeah. So his second book, Who's Got Your Back, is great for people who are looking to form these lifelines. This is what Keith Ferrazzi's terminology is. People who aren't family, who you can use as your lifelines. Not in a literal sense, like your life is in peril and you need somebody to call on, otherwise really bad things are going to happen. But folks, when your back is against the wall, when the money runs dry and you're desperate, who are you going to turn to? And each of these people in my mastermind group are my lifelines. I don't just reach out to them when we have our every other week session for 2 hours. I can reach out to them at any point in time. They're great friends, and they do the same thing for me. So having this connection, having this group of people that I can be vulnerable with, they know me, they understand the context, I can just be raw and just totally dump from my heart and from my brain. They're great for accountability too. So there's a lot of different levels and layers to mastermind groups. And for the people who don't really know about them too much, there's tons of resources. I'm sure you could throw out lots of resources related to it too. What's been your experience with mastermind groups?
Yeah, similar. So far, I've only had accountability buddy, so it's a one person. Then been lucky enough also that I have a good business partner, which also works like a business, accountability buddy. With mastermind groups, I'm working on one now, but in the past I've been part of mastermind groups. It's been interesting. Perhaps I wasn't even, I'm not going to mention a name, but I don't think I was in the right one. Because everyone was kind of more interested in themselves more than development of the others and success of the others, and especially the founder or the owner of the mastermind group was very interested in promoting him, and basically it was kind of extension of his business, that mastermind group. So wherever possible, there was a bit of plugging going on. So it was like, it didn't really feel like a mastermind group eventually, so I left. That's my unfortunate experience. But I also wanted to ask, we discussed before about different types of people, where you are more extrovert. I believe I am a little bit more extrovert, but someone like my business partner, we believe is more introvert. So what about introverts? Maybe they can't be, and they wouldn't feel good being so vulnerable with another group of people, doing video calls, podcasts. What are the ways for them to be a good resource and get a good resource?
Well, there's other communities that you can join. If one-on-one is too intense, if even in a small group that's too intense, there's different online communities that you can be a part of. I'm sure you could talk about whether it's web dev or web design. There's so many amazing online communities, both free and paid, that you could become a part of. The ones that I think are most valuable are the ones where people aren't interested in conversion. You can tell when you go to a website, better than me, when people are really focused on conversion and maximizing profit versus maximizing value for you. It's the same thing with a community. The best ones are a place where people share them as opposed to everyone's trying to own and have a slice of that. So I'll give you an example. I am what's called a multi-potentialite. It's a term that my friend Emily Wapnick of puttylike.com came up with. Somebody with the diversity of passions, interests, and skills. I highly recommend, if you want to put it in the show notes, Emily just came out with a TED Talk about multi-potentialites and our superpowers of adaptability and rapid learning and some other cool ones. Awesome TED Talk. So she has a paid online community called the Putty Tribe for other folks like me who can't just pick a single thing. I love web stuff. I love graphic design. I also love minimalism, and I love reading about being a father. There's 50 different things that define who I am. There's not a singular thing. And by being a part of this online community, and I've been there for almost 4 years now, the relationships that I've developed, some people who I've never talked to before, at least not face to face, we're friends. We're good friends. And we would do a lot for each other, even though we haven't actually spoken with each other verbally. So for the folks who are a little bit more shy, perhaps a little bit introverted, broadening the scope from the individual level or the small mastermind group level to a community level, 100 people, 1,000 people. And then when you get in there, figure out, how can I help facilitate conversation, making sure that people are getting the answers that they want. Maybe I can volunteer to moderate a forum. If you like Reddit or a Facebook group and you're part of those, ask the owner, the subreddit or the Facebook owner, can I help? Can I help you moderate comments? They would love that. There's 100 different ways that you as an introvert can help online the owner or the facilitators of the community. And I could talk about tons of them if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think there's lots of information for introverts, which I actually have found a lot of, for some reason, web developers, web designers are. From my experience in surveys, more sort of introverts than extroverts, because perhaps, it goes back to the childhood, spending a lot of time on your own with a computer, hence you develop the skills, computer skills. But what also comes to my mind is she has a book and a video, Quiet, The Power of Introverts.
Susan Cain.
Yeah. So that's good one as well. I have read it and I have watched it. But now talking about the mastermind groups as well, and the online communities, you mentioned the web dev, and there are many web design communities and many communities related to a profession, just like web design. One of the biggest questions and worries that people have before going into them is about competition. So if I'm a web developer, I join this community, why would they really help me as a web? I'm a competition to them. They're gonna, do something not really as honest. They'll pretend to be honest, but they're gonna hide something from me. So what about this fear? A lot of people have this fear of, competition. I mean, that's a nasty thing, isn't it?
It can be. Or you can view every person as a potential partner or as a potential friend. So it's the difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. Pardon me if we've talked about this before, but going into a group, whether it's a party that you're at and eyeing people up and, he's taller than I am and he's got bigger muscles than I am, he's smarter than I am, like what can I possibly offer? Anything, any ideas that I throw out there, they're not good enough, I'm not good enough, like all these issues of it's a zero-sum game, right? The pie is only so big and I just want my little slice, But I know that as soon as I start heading for the table, someone's going to see me coming. They're going to take my slice of pie. Well, instead of having that mindset that somebody's going to take my slice of pie, come to the party with a pie of your own and see what kind of welcome that you get. For the people who have never tried this before, who have never come into some place where, think about it like dating. So you have this pool of people. Let's say you have 50 men and 50 women, and everyone's in there, and you know there's 50 people who could potentially, or 50 couples that could come out of there, but everybody's competing for the prettiest girl, or everyone's trying to be the smartest person there. Why don't you try to help other people out? Why, instead of trying to win at the dating game, instead of trying to win at the development game, what if you were to make allies? What if you were to make friends right away? Do you know how much those people are going to thank you? Do you know how grateful they're going to be that you also were looking out for them? Do you think most people, most humans who are we're pretty decent folks in general, pretty trusting folks, do you think that they're just going to completely forget what you've done for them and never try to do anything for you?
No, that's the thing. Yeah, it's a natural thing. I noticed that as well. You can't help it. It's to the extent where I've had situation where my friend accidentally injured me. Literally accident playing a game. So he was feeling very bad, and I kind of wiped it off, forgot about it. Even though had a black eye and all that. So he could still remember it. So next morning I just made breakfast for him, and he said, "Man, that kills me." He already feels bad for injuring me, and I do this good thing for him. He's like, "Oh, why did you do that?" It's crazy. Doing something good can kill person. Like it's crazy. Based on our natural instincts, like you say, and no, that's a good way, yeah. And I think one of our previous guests, Aaron Walker, also talked about how he created an alliance with other businesses so that they have greater power to purchase things and to keep on doing what they're doing. So. Yeah, I can resonate with that. We slowly, very slowly actually, have to head towards the end. I just want to know a little bit more. We talked at the beginning about the tools. Maybe you have tools, bootstrapping tools. If you have a bootstrapping mindset, perhaps you should have some bootstrapping tools. Not everything has to cost money.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the best tools that I use for my business, they do cost money. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I use that are free. Social media, I use Hootsuite. For some project management stuff, I use Excel spreadsheets. I've already purchased that. I don't pay a monthly license or anything. I already mentioned one of the tools from a scheduling perspective. As somebody who is constantly connecting with others and wants to make it really easy on them to schedule time across time zones, either I use a tool called Schedule Once, which allows you to have different calendars for different types of clients and showing different availabilities, having different intake forms. The whole let's send 10 emails back and forth before we figure out what platform we're talking on and when, and I got the time zone wrong, that just goes away with a platform like Scheduled Once. Other people like Calendly or Time Trade. So anytime that you need to talk to somebody and you need to schedule something, that's $19 a month. That is incredibly well spent for me. And that's one of my best tools, both from a workflow perspective and from a productivity perspective. As far as hosting goes, I'm still relatively small time, so I don't need to pay for VPNs or for dedicated servers. I use, for most of my websites, just a shared Bluehost plan. It's $7 a month, and it does the trick. I know that's not applicable to a lot of people, and I wish that I did have a need for a dedicated server, and someday I will, but right now I don't have a need for it. So instead of anticipating a need, I'm content paying the $7 a month. There's Dropbox Pro, which is 1 terabyte of cloud storage. That's $10 a month. Man, that is $10 well spent. So all of these things, I'm looking at my spreadsheet right now, James. I spend a total of $118.43 a month on reoccurring business charges between hosting and file management and invoicing and affiliate programs, podcast hosting. That's basically, I run my business for about $100 a month. And there's other one-time charges, whether it's hiring a contractor to do this and that. But I'm able to do that because I take that need-based mindset. And I also know that I've got a lot of friends who want to help me because I've helped them And I do ask, and I ask in a grateful way, and I ask in a humble way. And if I ask in the right way, which I've learned to do it more and more, the answer is often yes.
Well, I hope I can ask you in the right way. And you're going to give a nice answer for that. On a finishing note, what would be, your one applicable tip, piece of advice for our audience as the finishing note of our podcast?
Whether you're an introvert, shy, extroverted, ambitious, whatever it is, I have yet to see a successful business person do well as a solo person. Meaning, the more you grow, don't try to grow a network. Try to grow people who are friends that also can help you in business. So there's a different mindset. Like, a lot of people think, I'm going to befriend this person because there's a beneficial partnership here from a business perspective. I come from it from a mindset of, I'm going to make friends with this person because I think they're amazing. I want to help them. And oh, by the way, we might be able to help each other in a business context eventually. That mindset, friends first, business second, has gotten me and so many of the other people that I've seen who are way more successful than me, Scott Dinsmore of Live Your Legend, for example, and James Clear of jamesclear.com. I mean, they have made hundreds of thousands of dollars and made themselves indispensable resources to so many people because they have that friends first, business second mentality. So that's the one key thing. If people need a mindset shift, is to think of those terms.
Wow. Okay. This is I like the finishing note, definitely, and I think this is very, very real thing, because people. I have met a lot of them where they sort of look at you and think, how can I monetize eventually? How can I get money out of that person eventually? He knows this, he knows that. Not because you're an awesome person, that's it. And in fact, that's what I found as well. When you think that person is awesome, literally, and you connect to them because they're awesome, eventually you find out that they actually have influential friends, but that wasn't the initial reason why you connected with them. And that's often the thing. If you're awesome, you will have awesome friends, but just don't have it as an initial thing. So Thank you for that. And of course, finally, where can people connect with you and be vulnerable with you?
Well, I'm in a transitional state. So depending on when this is published, either I'm still at valueofsimple.com or I'm actually moving over to joelzeslovsky.com sometime in the next 3 to 4 months. So basically, if they go to valueofsimple.com, either that's going to take them to my current hub, or it's going to redirect them with the help of a technical person who I've enlisted, who knows how to do 301 redirects and all that stuff that I don't know how to do. That's the main place. And Twitter, Google+, I'm at Joel Zeslovsky, Zaslofsky. And as people can probably tell from our conversation, I love connecting. So people can reach out to me if they have something that they need, something that they want to practice their asking, they can do it with me.
All right, then. You heard that. Joel wants you to ask him anything, everything. I hope so. See what he can do for you and what you can do for him, perhaps. Thank you, Joel. And again, I hope we can make it into a third episode as well at some point. Thank you.
I'm grateful, James. Thanks for having me on.